Hello and welcome to another Sunday live stream. I'm your host Jeremy, and we're going to have a couple of hopefully interesting things today to look at. I've made some acquisitions this week. Good morning, James. I made some acquisitions this week, part of them for projects I'm working on of my own at home, and part of them for a client project. So I will stall for a minute while we wait for a couple other people to come in, but in the next 2 minutes or so, we'll probably get started and start looking at things. Hopefully, everybody's been enjoying this nice weather we've had this past week, and everything's going well for everybody. Guess I don't need the headphones at this point. All right, so while we're waiting for people to come in, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I wanted to make a note of this for anybody that has been paying attention and using Proxmox. I completely missed the release of Proxmox backup server version 2.2, and they're actually at 2.2-1, and I probably got so caught up in the new version of Proxmox VE, the 7.2 version, that I didn't even really pay this much attention. But I wanted to mention that is available. As with their other products, there is the option to download it and use it without paying a subscription fee. There are options to remove the nag screen and some of the other stuff as well. But if you can afford to support the Proxmox developers, I think it would be a great thing to do. Now, when I get my new Proxmox server up and running, I am intending to, at least for a year, get the community support subscription, which if I jump over here, we look at pricing. So the community support package is 95 euros a year. So that'd be somewhere between 100 and 105 depending on exchange rates when you make the purchase. That new system, well, new to me system that I'm trying to complete the build of is an i9 7980XE, so it's got 18 cores and 36 threads. But just a single socket, unlike my old Xeon server. So I am interested in going up to the community support just to give back, as I have made a little bit of money off from my Proxmox videos, and so I'd like to support the project and hopefully keep them developing it. Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff. So the first acquisition I got this week, I finally invested in a patch panel for my little mini rack that I've got. And this is actually a keystone panel, so on the back it is just their Ethernet couplers. So that's the way I wanted to do it. Other people spoke highly of this route. This is a TrendNet TCKP24 patch panel, and they were just sort of generic couplers. Everything in my apartment is currently Cat 5e, so I didn't go above and beyond on the on the couplers. To go along with the patch panel, I ordered a set of RackStuds Series II. So instead of working with cage nuts, you get RackStuds, and this I actually specifically ordered the purple variety. Hopefully that sort of focuses. But it's got the retainer just like the original ones. You put that on after you put it in your rack, and then you just screw on the black portion. So that's pretty slick. I've already put 4 of those into my rack, and I actually pulled the patch panel out just before this because I haven't actually got it all hooked up, but I couldn't resist the urge to mount it. The final thing that I've got this week, which is for a client project, is a TP-Link wireless access point. This is the TLWA1201. And I've not actually even taken this out of the box yet. But I've been working with a campground that has a lot of RV trailers in the area. And so the campers are complaining about having bad Wi-Fi inside their tin cans. So this, I've actually got 2 of these. This is the first part of the solution to that problem. Very white. It does have an on-off switch on the back. Over here, it's got power. There's a reset switch and Ethernet. So the other part, which isn't arriving until Monday, unfortunately, is an outdoor access point. And so the outdoor access point is going to connect to the camp Wi-Fi, and then it'll come into the WAN port on this. Excuse me. And then hopefully the campers will have better Wi-Fi inside their RV, fifth wheel, whatever you want to call those obnoxious hunks of metal. So that is hopefully going to solve some problems. I'm not going to try setting it up until I get the other the outdoor access points, which are going to arrive on Monday. So that's really been the excitement for the week. I have continued working on the build for the i9 machine, which is going to run Proxmox, and I will probably be decommissioning the dual Xeon server, or possibly I will put VMware ESXi on there just to do a handful of videos and do some comparison between ESXi and Proxmox. So my intent as I move through that project is to have the i9 as the main Proxmox server, and then 2 of my Optiplex machines will act as the second and third node in the cluster. And then of course I've got the Proxmox backup server that will serve to back up the VMs and containers. So that's sort of the plan at this point. Um, just for the sake of argument here, let me jump here to my channel. And I just wanted to highlight that I've released 4 videos since last Sunday. So I covered briefly the Proxmox dark mode. Made a video each on importing and exporting Windows drivers. And then the last video is on NetDiscover, which is a network scanning utility. To round out and hit video 400, I've got a video that's already uploaded to my channel. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the next one to release. That covers a piece of software called ViewScan. And that is cross-platform and very reasonably priced. But I might go the route of just filming a thank you video for everybody's support and getting me to, I passed 3,500 subscribers this week. And then back to back, I'll have this 400 uploaded videos milestone. So that's going to be rather novel to have a couple of milestones right the same week. So, I didn't give a lot of warning for this video today. I'm glad I scheduled it for 11:30 though, because my father stopped in just after 11, and I hate when I have to interrupt videos when he drops in unexpectedly. But it's all good. Got to humor the guy because one day he won't be here. And hopefully I still will be. But in any event, I didn't have a huge agenda for this video. So I do still have a test Windows VM up and running on Proxmox. And I've not done a whole awful lot to this yet, other than run the Chris Titus Windows toolbox to change some settings and disable telemetry and just tweak things so that they're more usable and hopefully a little more maintainable. I've yet to activate this copy of Windows. I don't know if I will. I may wait and do a video on installing Windows 10 and Windows 11, and then once I get the i9 system up and running and can, give them 6 cores apiece if I desire to. So that's what's been going on in my world here, I suppose. Thankfully, I'm getting back into the swing of releasing more videos in a week. They are a little bit shorter, but I'm hoping to pick up doing some more in-depth Linux install and review videos here in the coming weeks as we start moving towards June. I can't imagine that I'm going to make it to 500 videos before the end of the year, but I'd like to be at 565, 575, and that's going to require a little bit of a push on my part to catch up to where I really want to be. So that's the update there. Not sure if I've even run updates on this since the initial install, but we'll check on that right now. And then we might jump over and look at something else here real quick. So I'll see what they've got available. I know it's not ready for Windows 11. So interestingly enough, I found it really interesting. I was watching a video that David over at the PE for Doers channel put out, and when you go to create a new VM, and you start selecting your OS, if you select Windows, Proxmox has the option for Windows 11 and Windows 2022. In a funny turn of events, VMware ESXi does not. Their newest one is 10. So that's kind of interesting to me that the dominant virtualization solution out there does not have support for Windows 11 baked in yet. And the open source one does. Go figure. So hopefully VMware will get on the ball with ESXi when they do their next update, hopefully in 2022, and release support for Windows 11, because it's been out for close to 6 months, give or take a little bit. But yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and shut this one down. Other projects I've got going on. I've started to redo my blog site, build that on a newer version of WordPress. This is still the old version, and I may end up moving this to a virtual private server, because this shared hosting I've got right at the moment seems to be slowing down. I'm not entirely sure why it's taking as long as it is to load my page, which I built this with Gutenberg. Actually, I built it before Gutenberg, and it's stayed pretty much the same ever since. It's nothing fancy, and I did that purposely because it's easier to maintain that way. Just using the Cadence theme, and I've started adding a few more posts where I link my videos. So if you'd prefer not to go directly through YouTube, you can also find the 2 or 3 most current videos here at my blog site. I know I should do more with photos and different things, but yeah, I try to, when I feel the urge to write, I try to do it quickly and get it out rather than, do what the professional bloggers do. So maybe not the best way to do things, but this site has been around for more than a decade, and until I completely revamp it and get it ready for the newest version of WordPress, this is probably what it will continue to look like for a little while. I do have the articles broke down into a few categories, but I've not been showing this blog quite as much love since I've been doing YouTube for the last 5 years. I pay my hosting every year, but I have not been writing nearly as much as I did. But I've got articles. Oh my gosh, I've got articles going back 14 years ish, maybe a little longer. So I had another website that I migrated all the articles over to this site. And yeah, so I'm unsure why it's taking this long to load. It used to be much faster. So I'm going to have to dig in and figure that one out. Good morning, David. I started late, so you haven't missed a whole lot. I briefly talked about a new patch panel with Ethernet couplers, keystone couplers. I got, whoops. Don't know if you've used these, but RackStuds says the Series II, and then the handy dandy access point for a client project. So the other access points arrive on Monday. It's for a campground site that people that own travel trailers don't give a lot of thought to their Wi-Fi issues until they get to the get on site and start having issues. So talked a little bit about the blog. Okay, Brian, bring on your Proxmox question if you've got one. I will try to answer it. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I've been using it on and off for 5-ish years now, so maybe I can take a stab at it. And Chris, good morning. Welcome. All right. I'm going to take a drink while Brian types his question. It's just Powerade. I've been trying to stay off the pop lately, so Powerade is my step down, and then once it gets warmer yet, I'm going to be pushing the water hard. So All right, let me throw my Proxmox back up, and maybe I can use this as a prop to demonstrate things and see what kind of question Brian has to throw at me. Okay, I have a PC with Windows 10 on it, and I want to take that install and turn it into a VM I can run on Proxmox on that same machine. Okay, so the way I would do that, honestly, is I would see. I would likely use Rescuezilla. And so I'll drop the video into chat. This covers an older version of it. Is it safe to assume, Brian, that you've got an external hard drive or a second machine that you can set up a file share on to send the image of your machine to? So what I would do, and I actually have right here a Windows 10 machine in Proxmox. I'm going to take your comment down for a minute. But what I would do is I would use Redo Rescue, or excuse me, Rescuezilla is my preferred solution. Redo Rescue is good for a backup. I've found fringe cases where one works and the other doesn't, but basically what you're wanting to do is create an image of the hard drive in your computer, and then you can once you get Proxmox installed, you can launch Rescuezilla from inside Proxmox. So let's see. You can launch this from within Proxmox and restore it to a VM. Okay, what's the difference between Clonezilla and Rescuezilla? So, Clonezilla and Rescuezilla are separate projects. Rescuezilla builds on top of Clonezilla a more friendly graphical interface. If you are comfortable using Clonezilla, by all means use Clonezilla. I tend to get a lot of people on the channel that are intimidated by Clonezilla, so I focus more on Rescuezilla and Redo Rescue and things of that nature that just make it a little bit easier for people to walk through the process. Clonezilla has a few more options that aren't yet available in Rescuezilla. So, yeah, that is sort of the difference there. So I'm not sure why. Well, let's just do it this way. Let's remove that, and we'll add back our drive. And Rescuezilla here. And then if we launch, well, let's double check. We'll make SATA 2 the first boot option. Invalid boot order device ID 0 does not exist. Okay. Huh. All right. Well. Okay, that might help. All right. So then if I wanted to take an image of this, I just fire up Rescuezilla here. And it takes a minute or two to load up. But so Rescuezilla launches right to their wizard. And you just select backup. And which drive you want to back up. And the partitions, you don't have to back up all of them if you're comfortable not doing that. And then the location, I normally back up over the network. Let's see, 1674 55. And so this will, excuse me, I actually got connected on the first try. So you can create a new VM on your remote device, or if you've got even an internal drive would work. You'd probably just want to you'd potentially want to unplug it while you're doing the Proxmox install, just to have a little bit of a safeguard against potentially overwriting it during the install. So we'll just call this Win10 VM, and we'll select that as our folder, and we'll say next and next, and you can select your compression level, and then you just wait until it's done. All right, so yes, Rescuezilla itself is a bootable image. You just download their image file from rescuezilla.com, and then once you've got your image saved, and you've got Proxmox installed, then you can come back in here and you can create a new VM. The sort of the trick though, is that you want to match as closely as possible the options that you've got on your existing system to what you set for the VM. So if you've got secure boot turned on and you're using EFI or UEFI, then you want to make sure you go through the process of doing that in Proxmox, which is, I won't say it's tricky, but it's something that does trip people up a little bit. Um, so, um, actually, we don't want to use any media on that. So, in the case of the um, my existing um, VM that I've got here that I'm backing up currently. So we set it to a SATA virtual drive, and I think that's a 40 gigabyte drive. So say we gave this 50. Optionally, you can turn on SSD emulation if you've got an SSD, or if you are one of those crazy people that might be running 10 or 15,000 RPM spinning Rust. Then you can also get just a little bit of extra speed out of that option. Um, but you go through your CPU and memory like you would normally, and it creates the VM to restore to. Um, and so once you're in here, if you're using secure boot and have a TPM, then you'd have to add the TPM state device and an EFI disk. That way, you've got the requirements shored up so that everything should work properly. Now, I have had some mixed results restoring UEFI machines into a VM. There are other resources out there that can help, and I guess the other piece of this is that if you are in fact using a UEFI system to begin with, it may actually work a little easier restoring to a VM, because you'll have that EFI partition on your disk already. But you would still want to add the TPM state, and this gives you it just asks where you want the TPM state to be stored. So I'll say local LVM, and then you've got the option for version 1.2 or version 2.0. So, okay. System is bare metal running off an SSD. So is it just one disk you've got in that system, Brian, or do you have multiple disks in there? So, anyways, let's see. I've got one machine that's running Windows 10 on bare metal currently. I can see if I've got enough storage to do the image of that, and restore it back into a VM and see how that works out. The difference is on that machine, I don't believe I've got secure boot enabled, and I think I've got it in legacy BIOS mode. Okay, so generally you're going to want at least one additional disk for Proxmox. Their generally suggested installation method is for a smaller OS install disk, and then you put the VMs and other things on other disks. So, for instance, this particular machine, I guess I need to move myself off screen for the moment. Do that. There. Okay, so this particular machine that I've got here, I've got multiple storage items. So the VMs and local LVM are in local. All three of these bottom ones are on this particular machine. The QNAP one is a NAS that I'm basically using for ISO storage. And then the Opti PBS is an Optiplex machine that is running Proxmox backup server. But generally you're going to want 2 disks. And the other side of that too is that if you're going to restore your Windows 10 install to it, unless it's a clean install, you'd want a larger disk anyways, because you're going to have the additional storage required by Proxmox to think about as well. HP mini PC, I wanted to throw Proxmox on to learn and run a few smaller VMs on it and the Windows 10 VM. Okay. Yeah, so you might want to consider, if it has room to put a second drive in. If it doesn't have room, you could consider an external USB disk. You can get all that working with Proxmox. It's not really difficult at all. So hopefully that addresses your Proxmox question, or at least gives you some information to work from. So, are there any other questions, comments? So I'm as I mentioned earlier, I'm still working on that i9 build. I'm really taking my time with this one. Had some screws that did not fit quite the way I wanted them to, so I'm being a little extra cautious just because of the amount of money I've got sunk into this. Will Proxmox fit on a USB? So yes, you could put that on a do the OS install on a USB thumb drive. You're going to lose some performance that way for sure, but that would be one way to do it. I mean, even I don't know, 64 gig drive would give you a little bit of a buffer after the OS is installed. I have not tested that solution. My normal, even on these little Optiplex boxes that I've been using for part of my Proxmox setup, my normal setup involves a solid state drive and a spinning rust drive. Um, that that has been sort of the approach I've taken with the Optiplex builds. Once I get the big boy i9 box up and running, then I am likely going to be changing that around a bit. So I'm curious about experimenting with Ceph. Um, so, excuse me. So that may turn into some upcoming videos. All right. You got another question, Brian. Bring it to me. Lay it on me. I run Windows off an NVMe drive and have a spare SSD in my case. I want to be able to install Linux and other OSs, but don't want to mess with the NVMe. Don't want to remove the NVMe. Yes, that is possible. Um, so, in that case, I would just say if you don't want to remove it, be very careful when you are selecting the install drive um, during Proxmox installation. Um, I would not in any way, shape, or form want to be responsible for you inadvertently wiping your Windows 10 install while trying to do that. So just pay special attention. I think the Proxmox installer will actually say NVMe in the drop down when you go to install it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I have not installed it on NVMe up to this point. But yes, as long as you're careful, it can be done for sure. Just want to use F12 to switch what drive to boot from and not have a bootloader installed on the NVMe. Yes, that should be possible as well. Um, hmm. Um, I've not tried that exact scenario. I'm sure it can be done. Um, I think you would still have to write a bootloader to the well, I mean either way there's going to be a bootloader on each drive if you do this separately. Um, yeah, that's a good question. Um, I know when I took my very first Linux class, and this was back in '98 ish, 99, maybe it was 2000. Um, so it's been a bunch of years ago. They actually used in the computer lab we did our Linux class in. They actually had a physical switch box that was installed in the PC so that you could select which drive you were going to boot from. Which at the time was a pretty novel thing, but you should be able to do that. I believe the trick with that is going to be you just make sure that when prompted that you write the bootloader to the SSD and not the NVMe drive. But yeah, that's an edge case that I've not been through with Proxmox specifically. I've done it with various Linux installs over the years, but yeah, this is always somewhat tricky. I've removed or disconnected any drive I was not installing to when adding a new OS. Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well, is to pull the NVMe out and do the install, and then you should have two independent disks that can be used from your boot menu. So, um, yeah, I guess that yeah, that's the way I would go. I know it's a little extra work to pull the NVMe drive out when you're installing Proxmox, but it's likely going to be the safest way, unless, like Bill says here, unless there's a way to disable your NVMe in your BIOS or UEFI. Um, and that's going to be one of those case by case bases. I'm more familiar with Dell equipment than I am with HP, so um, I'm not entirely sure there, but that's worth checking out. So thank you, Bill, for the suggestion there, and welcome to the stream, by the way. Um, so we're kind of taking questions at this point and shooting the breeze a little bit. Um, Probably go for another 10 minutes or so. Let's see. David says you also have to remember that some OS installs create multiple partitions. Um, the one it installs to, oh yeah, on the disk it installs to. That makes the F12 more complicated. Yeah, that it does. UEFI has not made things any simpler when it comes to that. But yeah, it is what it is. It's the way things are going these days, and all in the name of progress, right? I just want to make the system blind to any drive but the SSD I want to install to. Yeah, using the whole drive for Linux. Okay, so um, I'd love to hear more about your project, Brian. Once you get through that install and hear how it went. So maybe I'll see you in the next live stream coming up that next week, and you can give an update. So, all right. Other questions or comments before we wrap up for the day? See if we can wrap this up by 12:30 Eastern. So, well, let's see how this backup process is doing. Hey, look at that. Backup saved. And we can go ahead and close that down. And what exact size was that drive? Oh, that was a 60 gig. I was extra generous on that one. So that means that it's not going to fit on a 50 gig. So let's resize. Make that 60. Okay, we'll make it 110. So yeah, and doing the restore is same process, just going back the other way. Rescuezilla, and I tend to do all my backups to the network. It generally works pretty well. Maybe not the best thing to be doing while I'm streaming, but usually it's all right. So in this case, I'll restore. We're going to restore from a file shared over the network. Browse Windows 10 VM. And just in case you haven't noticed before, that does have the Clonezilla logo here for the file. It's the same files are interchangeable. And that's what we're restoring to. And all partitions. And then just let it rip. So, if it breaks, I can just restore to bare metal, worst case. Yes. Yep. I have tested going from bare metal to VM and VM back to bare metal with Rescuezilla, and I've had good luck on the equipment I own. Being a mini PC and an HP, it should be fine. I know you get into HP servers and some of that stuff's a little more finicky, shall we say, than a Dell or Supermicro server, but with a little tweaking, I'm sure even that would work. But yeah. Anyways, let's see. In the old days, built a set of power switches for multiple hard drives I use with different operating systems. NVMe makes that tough. Yes, it does. Mounted toggle switches on a blank 5.25-inch bay filler. Yep. In my test bench, I have a universal hot swap mobile rack for 2.5 and 3.5-inch drives in one of the 5.25-inch bays, and each OS on a different 2.5-inch SSD. Welcome, Catherine. Hope all is well with you. we're just getting to the wrap up portion of the day today. This restore has 6 minutes to go. I don't think I'll keep this rolling for the whole 6 minutes, but I just wanted to give a little bit of coverage to Rescuezilla. In fact, they should. Now the latest release came out on the 2nd of January of this year, and the developer has been promising for a little while now that the 2.4 version is coming, but I have yet to see it. So hopefully that'll come out soon now that Ubuntu 22.04 has been available for a while. And bring us a slightly upgraded version of the different software under the hood. Ken, welcome. Appreciate you and your channel. I've already learned a lot from you in a short time since I subscribed. Well, thank you. I'm always open to new ideas, so if there's something that you haven't seen on my channel that leans towards the Linux side of things, or at least cross-platform, please feel free to make suggestions. So Brian, you could use Macrium Reflect. I'm not familiar with that product. But you should. Let's see. Do they have a version of that restores to bare metal? Because that's what you would need to run in the VM. Rescuezilla can now be built on Windows PE 11. So yeah, it probably boots into a Windows PE system and uses that instead of a Linux backend, which is what is used by Rescuezilla, Clonezilla, and Redo Rescue. Yeah. I've heard of people using Macrium Reflect. I've not used it because since I've got Windows, Linux, and Mac systems, I try to use software that's available for all three as much as possible. And of course, then Apple went and threw the Apple Silicon curveball at everybody. So that's not so much the case anymore with the newer Macs, but yeah. Let's see. What I like about Macrium is the ability to mount the image and access files. Yep. Rescuezilla is supposed to be able to do that, although in my attempts, I've not been 100% successful. So, yeah. Let's see. Doing a bench setup of my Wi-Fi switch and wireless router. Next weekend, I will be installing both. Trying to decide if I can do any of it on a live stream. Let's see. There is a free version, but it may not have the option you want included. Maybe have to pay for it. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I might have to check it out just to just to say that I have. See what the limitations are. Tried to install ESXi, but I failed since I have no server. So, um, if you really want to get exotic with things, Catherine, you can um, do nested virtualization and install ESXi inside of VirtualBox. I've seen some videos that people were just crazy enough to try that. They've done it with both ESXi and Proxmox. They've installed in a VM. It can get a little tricky, but um, as long as you've got all the underlying virtualization options enabled in your UEFI, you should be okay. ESXi can be installed on any machine. It's just picky about hardware. Yes. Um, that's what really swayed me to virtual or to excuse me to Proxmox is because Proxmox is built on a very stripped down thin version of Debian Linux, and Debian runs on anything. In fact, um, you can actually run, and somebody did run Proxmox on a Raspberry Pi. Um, Now, in my opinion, I guess, um, I would say forget the Pi 4 if you're going to do this, and I'd try to score a decent uh, uh, Raspberry Pi compute module for and a carrier board. One that you can attach a regular uh, ATX or ITX power supply to if you're going to run Proxmox on that in any sort of long-term quasi-production setup. But they have done it. Proxmox or virtual VMware gives free licenses. Yes. Yep. CM4s are a pain to find. Yeah, and the anything other than the Pi 400 with the keyboard built in is a pain to find at MSRP. Um, Now, if you Raspberry Pi locator, if you want to order from Europe, you can get your hands on the 3A plus or the Compute Module 4 with 1 gig of RAM. Um, I fail to see the attractiveness of that at 33.6 Great Britain pounds. But you know, I suppose if that's your only option, then it may it may be worth it to you as a short-term solution. um, I refuse to pay more than MSRP. I'm very much in agreement with you. That's why I've picked up Dell Optiplex machines for next to nothing. Um, that's why I'm using the HP Mini. Yep. How much wattage does the PSU have for Proxmox? Well, I mean, like anything else with I mean, if I were doing it with a Pi, I would be looking at, you know, anything 300 or more just to have that buffer. You're never going to use all that, but once you start adding drives, which, you know, some of these carrier boards for the compute modules do have NVMe drive options and um, several SATA ports. Or, you know, some of them even have a PCI Express slot, and then you can add a SATA card and run additional drives that way. All depends on your system specs, just like Brian says here. um, like I said, since Proxmox is built on top of Debian Linux, you know, it really depends on what your system specs are and how many drives you're going to hook up and whether they're SSDs or spinning Rust. Oh yeah, for a compute module 4, that'd be great. Um, you know, with a regular Raspberry Pi 4, then you're going to have to run USB drives. Um, so, but yeah, be way over for a Pi. It's just when you start adding drives, um, you've got to, obviously you both know this. You got to calculate in the power consumption by the additional drives you're going to be using, which by themselves, you know, spinning Rust is going to start consuming as much as a Pi. So, all right, let's take one final look at the restore, and that did finish. We'll close this down. And we can reconfigure. So we're booting off. There's my disk I restored to. I just want to take the ISO out. And with a little luck, this should boot up our Windows machine from the other VM. And it looks like it's going to boot up just fine. Maybe. It's Windows, so I never bank on it working. At least not the first time. Not looking terribly promising here. Maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe it'll surprise me. I was doing so well, and maybe I'll end up this stream getting bit by the curse. It should have restored fine because I restored to a larger virtual disk than what I cloned from. Unless it cloned to... Oh! I spoke too soon. It actually worked. Alright, so the big thing I want to see on this, because I restored to a larger drive, is whether it will see the size of the new drive or whether I'm going to need... yeah, I'm going to have to go in and manually resize that because it only sees it as the 59.4 gigs that I had before. Not the end of the world. So we just go into disk management. And maybe it'll load up. So yeah, it's got the 50 gigs unallocated here behind the recovery partition. So I could assign that a drive letter. I could extend the recovery partition. Doing anything more exotic than that may mess the system up. So I'm going to save that for another day. I may record that just to see if I can really hose Windows, which honestly doesn't take much, but hey, it's okay. Brian, no, this is the image that I just made from this the initial Windows 10 test image here. I more wanted to show the process of Rescuezilla, and I don't have that physical machine setting near me right at the moment, so it wouldn't be as easy to show that process. It's your birthday. Well, happy birthday, Catherine. Hope it's a great one. So, all right. Well, on that note, we've been live for an hour and almost 20 minutes. I appreciate all of you coming out. If you've not done so already, it'd really help me out and help the channel out if you could take a moment to like, and if you're not subscribed, please do that as well. I don't have it yet in the description for this video, but if anybody feels a desire to support the channel, I will be adding the link in the description after we conclude today for Buy Me a Coffee, which helps me to buy additional equipment and different things that I use for the channel, and keep it all from coming out of my pocket, which gets expensive quickly. But thankfully, I think I've got things built up to the point now where my purchases this year are going to be much smaller in comparison to what I did last year. Now that I've got lighting I'm relatively happy with, I've got some newer computer equipment, and yeah, once I get this i9 build done, probably the only upgrades I'll do to that this year are to add more storage drives and add more memory. It's got 32 gigs right now, but I'd love to have a system with 64 gigs of RAM. So maybe I will treat myself and snag a Black Friday deal in November and order another 32 gigs of RAM. So, um, yeah, six of you in the chat right at the moment, or watching, anyways. So, thank you all for the support. I very much appreciate it. Um, this video makes 399 videos that I've got on YouTube, and I've got the 400th video recorded and uploaded. I just have to release it, and I'm not sure whether I'll do that later today or if that will wait till tomorrow or Tuesday. I'm kind of itching to get to that 400 number, so it may just be an added bonus for today and get me over that hump. So I'm going 64 gigs on both my main systems and eventually 128 on the new server. Yeah. Um, Catherine, I don't have anything to report yet. I'm getting closer. I had a couple of screws, the screws for the mounting brackets for the water cooler, for the where it attaches to the CPU socket. The screws for the mounting brackets were not fitting the way I thought they should. So I pulled them back out to give me time to search for slightly shorter screws, so that they're held on solid. But once I get that done, then the build is pretty much clear sailing. So that's the hold up there. Brian, I got a sweet deal on a system, or the guts of a system from a buddy of mine. An X299 motherboard with an i9 7980XE, 32 gigs of RAM, and two NVIDIA 2080 cards, one of which needs to have some reflow work done on it. But if I can have one solid 2080 in that system, since I'm going to use it as a VM server, it'll be wonderful. It'll be wonderful and much faster than a 13, 14-year-old super micro dual Xeon server that is just loud and obnoxious and sucks a lot of energy. So I left the AMD stuff in the packaging, but the kit of screws that came with the case, I found some shorter screws that were the same thread pattern, that will hold the brackets in, and I know I'm using the right brackets, because I did a test fit, without hooking it up to the water cooler. So once I get those done, I am golden then. So almost went X299 on my new PC, but ended up with an 11900K instead. Yeah. I wouldn't have done this if I were buying stuff new. But I just got an obscene deal and I couldn't pass it up. So for all the parts that I mentioned, the motherboard, 32 gigs of RAM, the CPU, which is 18 cores, 36 threads, and two 2080 cards, one of which is fully working. I only paid $250 US. So, yeah, I had honestly hoped to be building a Ryzen system in the fall, but um, yeah, this I don't need a state of the art system for running VMs. So, anyways, all right. Well, thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. I need to go find myself some lunch, and make a decision whether I'm going to release that video this afternoon. But yeah, I guess spoiler alerts. The new video is covering a piece of software called ViewScan, which is cross-platform. It runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. And yeah, once, for instance, Epson stops supporting a given scanner and stops doing updates on the software, um, oh, ViewScan is a dream to use and very reasonable. And they've actually got a sale going on right now. And just for the sake of argument, no, I am not sponsored by uh, by them. So, um, yeah, I'm very interested, and everybody keep your eyes out this coming week, the 24th, starting the 24th, which I believe is Tuesday. Computex is happening, and AMD is going to be talking about the new AM5 motherboards. So be on the lookout. That is like going to be the highlight of my week. So, all right. Until next time, thank you all for coming out, and I will see you all in the next live stream. Have a great day, everybody.